Hey guys, this week in Coach's Corner, we're talking strength for endurance athletes. Too often, endurance athletes neglect the strength portion of their training program, which is crucial for their durability, their longevity, and even their speed in their sport. The strength training can also help mitigate potential injury risks from muscular imbalances that are compounded thousands of times over in just a single workout, let alone over the course of a season. For example, if an athlete has a weak right hip in just a single 60-minute ride at 90 RPMs, this is 5,400 pedal strokes that the left leg must compensate for that weak right side. That is a lot of pedal strokes to ask the left side to be under that much more stress to maintain speed and power. Over time, this can lead to issues with fluidity of the pedal stroke or even the total power, as well as potential injury risks down the road. So it's important that we're correcting those through drills such as single leg pedaling on the bike, as well as in the weight room doing our strength training. When we're looking at strength training for endurance athletes, there's three components that we need to take into consideration: specificity of the strength training, the frequency of the strength training, and the overall volume or training load. When we talk specificity, the first thing we need to address is that endurance athletes really need to work through the entire kinetic chain when they're looking at their strength programs. So the kinetic chain is how our body moves through space to create efficient movement. So all of the joints and the muscles in our body work together to produce this movement pattern: our gait cycle in the run, our pedal stroke on the bike, and just our stroke in the water. So we need to make sure that we're sound throughout that entire kinetic chain. So to do this, we need to look at each part of the body from the ground up. So we're looking at the planters up through the ankle, the calves, the knee joint, the thighs, the hip joint, up through the back and core to the shoulders, down through the arms, and up through the neck. So our program should truly be incorporating exercises that target each one of these areas in the way that they're going to be moving in each of those three disciplines. So the run, the bike, and the swim. And we'll go through some examples here in just a second. The other part of the specificity of training is making sure that our movements in the weight room are simulating the demands and the constraints of the disciplines they're going to be under when they're performing their endurance sport. So again, whether bike, swim, or run, there are various constraints of the sport itself, and we need to apply those to our strength training workouts. For example, when we're looking at the run and the bike, these are unilateral movements. So if we're in the weight room and we're doing just goblet squats and back squats and bench pressing, we're never isolating the right and left side. And there could be those muscular imbalances that we're just glancing over because our body becomes very good at compensating. So it's important to isolate the sides of the body through unilateral movements. Some of these may include a unilateral squat, focusing on that slow eccentric portion of the squat as we lower into the air or even down to a chair. Again, it's working the stability as well as the muscular strength through the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the glutes, everything working in unison together. Additionally, we could do some walking lunges. If we're talking upper body, we may be looking at either some plank variations as well as some single arm flies or single arm lat pull downs, anything that's targeting that unilateral side, again, to assess the right and left. Now, there is a time and a place for those bilateral strength movements, but I encourage you to include as many unilateral movements as well. Particularly when we're talking about swimming, we also have this contralateral movement of we're rotating through that transverse plane. So opposite sides of the body are working together to create that rotation. And we really want to make sure that our obliques or our core is strong through the hips, the obliques up through the shoulders. A lot of that propulsion and that power comes from that rotation at the hips. So again, we're including a lot of plank variations with that twist twist through that transverse plane. We may be doing some medicine ball tosses to the side, again, including that rotation up the torso. If we're looking at swimming, we also need to take into consideration the actual strength through the motion of the stroke. So we're using tools such as banded swim cords to actually practice things like the catch phase, the recovery phase, the follow through phase, all of those in the motion that they're going to be doing actually in the pool. So this would be considered dry land training. So basically going through that swim stroke in a broken down version, performed in a horizontal plane. So now these banded swim cords can attach to a door, they can attach around any stationary object, or you can use a cable machine if you're at the gym and don't have access to swim cords. But again, it's important to target the way the muscles are going to be under demand in the sport itself and target that in the gym. So again, looking at single-sided activities as well as which muscles are going to be most useful for that sport. So oftentimes in running and even cycling, if we're not strong at the hips and those glutes, then we often see imbalances where knees are caving in or out, or we're getting that lateral side-to-side movement when we're going through the pedal stroke on the bike. And this is loss of efficiency and ultimately speed. So we want to make sure that we're strong and sound at those major muscular joints. When we're in the pool, a lot of that propulsion is coming from the hips as well as our lats. So we want to make sure we're strong through that catch phase and we're pushing the water straight back. So making sure that our program is specific to the demands. Additionally, we need to look at frequency of training. I have my athletes strength train at minimum twice a week. This is important because we really need to develop that consistency and that muscular adaptation to develop muscular endurance as well as muscular strength paired with the aerobic side of our program. Typically, I have my athletes put their strength workouts on the same days as their harder, shorter intensities workouts that are either bike, run, or swim. The reason I do this is so that the training stress on that singular day may be very high. However, the following day we have a low training stress day and they're able to fully recover, replenish those glycogen stores in roughly that 20 to 24 hours post the harder intensity day, replenish their protein needs to get muscle protein synthesis off the ground, and it allows for that true recovery. That is why I put the strength on the same day. Now, when we're looking at putting the strength on the same day as a harder intensity interval run, ride, swim, or tempo workout, we can put it in two different places. So we can either put that workout immediately post the endurance workout, in which case that strength workout is likely going to be geared towards more body weight movements, a lot of stability and just general core strength, because we're going to be exercising in a fatigued state. So the most important thing that we can target in that moment is form and posture, which ultimately comes from our core. Okay. Now, if we aren't going to do that strength workout immediately post that endurance workout, I encourage my athletes to leave at least at minimum 4 hours gap between that endurance workout, that hard interval training, and their strength workout. This allows us to make sure that we're able to have an effective strength workout because we've been able to refuel, get glucose into the body, get protein into the body to, again, help with just the generation of energy for that strength workout, but also be able to go through muscle protein synthesis effectively and actually repair and rebuild those muscles, which is necessary to develop that strength. So again, twice a week minimum. We're going to talk in just a second about what the volume of that looks like, but encourage your athletes or encourage yourself to get into that weight room at least twice a week, even if it's just body weight exercises, to really work on just general strength, muscular endurance, and muscular strength. When we're looking at volume of our strength training program, it's important to understand that the strength side of our training program is truly a supplement to what we're doing on the endurance front. Okay, so on the weeks that our training load and training stress is very high in the disciplines of run, bike, and swim, we may need to cut down the volume of our strength workouts or the intensity of our strength workouts on that week. For example, we may make a switch to more body weight exercises, more core focus exercises. We may switch our repetitions from that muscular endurance range of about 12 to 20 reps down to something that's more 8 to 10 or more manageable for them. We may include a longer rest periods between our strength exercises, or we may bring our total number of exercises down into the 4 to 6 range, something like that, and reducing our sets. So the thing that's going to dictate this the most is, again, watching that recovery, which we talked about a few videos ago. So making sure that we're recovering from day to day and even workout to workout. So if we're doing a morning workout and then an evening, making sure that we're able to give our body an optimal chance to have an effective workout by refueling and certainly rehydrating, because we're losing a lot of fluid, especially through these endurance workouts in the summer. We need to make sure we're replenishing. So we're adjusting those strength workouts depending on our training status that week on the endurance front and our recovery status that week. Certainly we don't want to eliminate our strength workouts, but we can make that adjustment in overall volume. It's also important to note that although most of what we're training in the weight room is going to be body weight or lighter weight with higher repetitions, there is a time and a place to target muscular strength for endurance athletes as well. So working in that 8 to 10 rep range, a little bit higher weight. Typically, we'll incorporate this type of strength training when we're getting into more of those VO2 max repeats, lactate threshold work, as well as anaerobic work on the endurance front. So targeting more of that speed and that power and those type 2 muscle fibers that are going to allow us to have that second gear at the end of the race, propel up hills as best we can, the propulsion in the swim to get out quick, get out in front of the pack so that we don't get stuck and trampled on in the water, all of those things. So there is a time and a place to focus on muscular strength as well. And it is in those times of the year when we're starting to make that transition to the faster speed work that we're going to need in our racing phases or in our championship zone. So again, important to focus on specificity, frequency, as well as training volume, and making sure we're assessing each of those 3 things from week to week and season over season to make those adaptations that we need to continually improve and correct all of those imbalances that we may find. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week at Coach's Corner.